go. Awesome. All right, so I'm Annette, and this is Sarah. Actually, I have a funny little story to tell. Sarah and I just met today, but we have been working on this project for quite some time, and it's just been a really neat example of, they sort of got introduced to me by fire one evening on this project that we are going to show you here today, and I was working with them as a designer who was basically going through and vetting products for multiple chemical sensitivities for a client who has severe multiple chemical sensitivities. But what's so cool about it is that there was such great respect on this project that it worked. So it's really fun for me actually to be here today and actually get to meet her in person. So what we're going to talk about actually is we're going to take you through really what you need to do to address the design, the research, the documentation, and then the implementation around really healthy indoor air quality. And that's basically what today's about. So I'm going to go through a lot of the process of the research, which is really my hat on this project, and then Sarah's going to take us through and talk about the actual project itself and the case study. And what's really cool is that she's talked to the client and also got sort of a lowdown on what worked and what didn't work. And right now I have about half a dozen clients who have varied levels of multiple chemical sensitivities, and I know that, for example, Shelley's here in the room and has worked with clients with multiple chemical sensitivities. Anybody else? Awesome. And how many lead APs do we have here going for credit today? Okay, great. Super. So without further ado, we're going to move forward.
It's interesting when we ask the room who has chemical sensitivities, I would expect every hand to go up because actually we all do have chemical sensitivities, and it's something that we're just learning about. Some people are more acutely aware of them than others, but it is really something through our research we're realizing that everyone is affected, and we spend 90% of our time inside,
yes,
and 2 to 5 times of the pollutants are found indoors. So this is a topic that is not going away, that we're seeing more and more, and our clients are expecting us to be experts in this and to help guide that process. Many of these things you already know. There's benefits to a healthy home. Obviously, there will be reduction in asthma, in allergens, in radon. We live in Colorado where there's been a ton of mining activity. Radon is something that is very acute here in our state. And obviously, through building a healthier home, we will have a cleaner home and healthier lives, which will reduce many of the triggers that we have talked about. The other thing that's happening, a trend that we all know about, is we're building tighter homes. And when we are building tighter homes, we don't have the ability for the toxicity within our home to escape. This is also true with our water that could come into our home. So part of the benefits of building this healthy home and being really acutely aware of the materials that we're putting into it is hopefully we will have less dampness, we'll have less odor, that results in less musty basements, things such as that. Many of us have pets. They are bringing things in just as we are from outdoors. So if we could be creating a healthy home through not only the choices of materials that we're doing, but how we are applying those materials, hopefully we will have a cleaner environment.
So how many of you on your Lead for Homes projects, or how many of you have done a Lead for Homes project? So a few of you. You know, one of the most important things when it comes to indoor air quality is first off making sure that the garage is as separated both either from a construction standpoint or physically from the building, but then also having that room where you can have the walk-off mats and the storage for the shoes. One of the most important things is, as Sarah was saying, is that you don't bring in what is outside into the home, because that is filled with both organic and inorganic particulates. Even, you know, from the VOCs of as we travel around in the world, it's on our clothes. You know, when you think about, we used to go to bars and our clothes would smell like smoke. Those elements are following us into our homes. So it's really important that we take that into consideration. But, you know, more importantly is that we work together as a team. And I think one of the coolest things on this project for me is coming in as a consultant, you know, having that incredible respect and integration where everybody had this wisdom around the project, starting with the owner, you know, starting with our client who has the multiple chemical sensitivity. She's really driving the boat, so to speak, and then all the way down through every single person that comes onto that job site. It's like we all take that responsibility to ensure that it's a healthy project from the get-go.
Absolutely. One of the things that we're going to talk about in our case study is the team, and it is paramount to establish this team from the beginning. And we're about to start another project with this exact same client and this exact same team because of the success of this project that we just completed. As we know, many of us in this room are in the building industry. I like to say it's a contact sport, and it takes a lot of stamina. And what was paramount about having a team and having everyone agree to the goals and being dedicated to those goals is when one team member is maybe losing a little bit of steam or maybe getting caught up or going down a wrong path, the other team members can bring them back in. And let's get back to our goals. This is what we're trying to achieve here. And it really does take every component to create this team. And within the team, you need to establish a leader. In the case of this project, I was the leader. It was a lot of phone calls and a lot of emails, but it was really important to have someone shepherding it and making sure decisions were being made in a timely manner so that the construction could keep happening. A lot of these decisions were happening during construction. Ideally, it happens before construction, but we don't live in an ideal world. So it's really important to make sure timelines are understood, implications are understood, and also giving people the breathing room to make decisions. I'm a real believer in ruminating on something and giving it a night rest. You know, gosh, we've just been given all this information. Let me rest on it and let me understand what the decision I need to make, and I'll get back to you tomorrow. But make sure you hear from them tomorrow. And if you don't hear from them, give them a phone call, because that way work can continue.
Cool. Yeah, I'm giggling only because literally Keith, the contractor, the foundation was being redone, the building was going up, and all of a sudden they get this call from the client saying, you will now be working with this lady, me, and she's going to be vetting products for you. And all of a sudden I am inundating them with all this information. But
it was great.
It was great,
Yeah.
but in retrospect, when we can start earlier and start at the beginning and really have those goals clear from the get-go is the best way to approach it. So now I'm going to move more into sort of the technical aspect of it, which was the part that I helped to facilitate. And I have notes here because I just want to make sure that I don't forget anything.
I'll do the slides.
Okay, great, because there was just so much information that we went through on this project. So really where we started, yes? Mindy.
Yeah, I'm sorry to just interrupt you, but is this stuff on the website?
Yes, so for all of you to know, all the presentations from the last 2 days will be uploaded to the website, and I believe it's going to be to the RockyMountainGreen.com. So don't feel like you have to furiously take notes. And in addition to that, I don't have handouts because I don't believe in handing you a ton of paper, but there will be resources at the end with a bunch of links, and I have some examples of some of the handouts that you might want to download and get for this type of information. So good question, Mimi. So my job was really to gather the data on the products and recommend alternatives. So the best place to start is with what's called a material safety data sheet. How many of you have looked at an MSDS? And how many of you, when you've looked at it, understood what was on there? So a few of you, that's good. You know, this is an interesting process because for me, this is something I'm incredibly passionate about and frankly, self-taught through what's available to us in the world, either through, books or online or taking classes. But really, that's the best place to start. And what you'll find as you go through the MSDS is you find all kinds of different information. Essentially, you're going to find, the MSDS is incredibly valuable. We'll talk a little bit about if the product has environmental product declarations. That's also really good. Third-party certifications, and if you can find out what those are. There's unfortunately not one place to go to find all of this. There's about 50 dozen places to go, depending on the product. We'll look at product standards a little bit and talk about which one of those are really viable. And we'll also talk about some of the resources that I use, both Building Green and Ferris and a few others. So for us to know, there are literally about 10,000 pollutants in our everyday world. And what you have to think of to begin with is where are those pollutants coming from? In an indoor space, it's everything that we can see, touch, or feel. It's the floors, it's the walls, it's the furniture, it's the finishes, it's the adhesive, it's the upholstery, it's the assembly of the upholstery. It's the person sitting next to you. I've had a client who has severe allergies for perfume. So literally, either perfume or even underarm deodorant, you had to understand what that sensitivity was so that you weren't triggering the reaction. Cleaners. So after we've delivered the home, we also have to think about what are they using for cleaners? What kind of candles are they buying? How many of you walked by the Yankee candle store and sneezed? It isn't little things. It's clothing as well. So it's really every single thing that we are in contact with every single day. And, from a standpoint of a material safety data sheet, sometimes manufacturers will say, well, I can't give you that information because it's proprietary. You gotta dig, and you gotta make those phone calls, and both Sarah and I made those phone calls to say, you know, what you need to understand is we have this client here who has severe multiple chemical sensitivities, and we need to understand what's in there. So it's really doing that digging and that due diligence. What you're seeing here, and most of you have read these, but essentially you know that the HMIS stands for the Hazardous Material Information System. Most of your charts are going to look like this, although what we're finding is that some of them will be in different graphic formats, but the information is essentially the same. So one of the first places I go is I look at the health. How healthy is this product? Is it a 0? Oh wow, that's a great start. From there though, then I'll dig down into the components or the chemicals and really look at what that is made of, and we'll go to that here in a second. Additionally, what you'll find now is that some of the older MSDSs have the yellow bar as reactive, but it's changing now to what's called the physical hazard. So the HMIS 3s are now going to have a physical hazard, which is a much more in-depth reading. That's pretty much it on that. There are hyperglossaries available to define every single thing that you possibly find on an MSDS, but the main thing that we focused on were the chemicals and the compounds that were made up of the product. So here it is. This is actually a really bad one, which is why we used it as an example. It's a metal cleaner. As from a health rating standpoint, it's a 3. And I actually dug down into, right here is where you want to go. You want to look at the case number, and the case number you can actually then insert into this great resource called Pharos, and they will give you what that particular chemical is. And it will tell you how badly it will affect you if you're around this product. Every single one of these are acute. They're either a mutagen or a carcinogen. And even though they're only like 10 to 20%, this one's 30 to 40, there are products out there that we are using that we really shouldn't be using. In the United States, there are only 50 chemicals that are banned. In Europe, there are 50,000 chemicals that are banned. So it's up to us as consumers, and we're consumers because we specify on behalf of our clients, to really keep drilling this down to our vendors and asking this question.
It's totally unregulated.
Totally.
In America.
So every single one of these were acute. Some of them irritated the eyes, some of them was inhalation. If you inhaled it, it would affect you and literally you could die. Causes burns. Some of them are asthmagens. So some of the things that you want to avoid right off the bat is PVC. And this is, some people say this is controversial. It is not controversial. PVC, when it's being made and exposed to heat, off gas is what? Anybody know? Dioxin. And dioxin is a known carcinogen. Dioxin is the smell that you have when you buy a new car. That is a new car smell. You do not want that. So if you buy a new car, make sure you let it sit outside with the windows up, and then open the windows to let that all off gas as quickly as possible. So dioxins is one of the worst. Additionally, we have what's called the persistent organic pollutants, another one to look out for. And essentially, anything, when you go through an MSDS, you will see things like, this is a potential carcinogen, or potential mutagen, all these great words. It's a reproductive or developmental toxicant. It's a neurotoxicant. It's an endocrine disruptor. Any of these persistent biochemical toxins you want to avoid. And then the next level of that is what's called, if you can go with bio-based materials that are sustainably farmed, sustainably harvested, that's really the best bet. There's a great website, and I'm sure Shelley's familiar with this website. It's called healthdesign.org. This is a great article to print out. For those of you in the back of the room, it's Creating Safe and Healthy Spaces from healthdesign.org. And it's by this incredible gentleman named Tom Lent. Tom started the Healthy Building Network years ago. And from that is now the Pharos lens. And Pharos will go into here in a little bit more detail. Okay, Sarah.